Hi guys, today I'm going to talk to you about the non-objective line design. That's this handout. It's available on Canvas under modules. Otherwise, you should have received one if you were in class with me this previous Monday, the 14th. So I'm going to go ahead and read over the rationale, and then I'm just going to show you a few things that you're going to need to do to complete this assignment. Okay? So semi-repetitive lines and their fluctuations often produce the illusion of an undulating surface and or rhythmic effect. Start with a single line and vary its directions as it moves across the entire format. Follow this with a second line drawn above or below the first, introducing a slight variation from the first. Lines may not intersect or cross over one another, nor may they close in on themselves, i.e. a circle. Lines must start and end on one of the edges of the paper, and continue this procedure down the length of the page. Vary the pressure of your pen slightly to cause changes in the width of the line, and allow spaces between lines to become interesting small shapes in themselves. A line is created by movement, and since our eyes are compelled to follow it, its potential to suggest motion is basic and powerful. The final result is a composition that should move across the entire page, gaining depth and motion and power as it goes. So you want the design to have a point of focus, some small open spaces, repetition and flow, and you can have one black space and it should not be in the very center of the design. So you're restricted to organic, non-geometric lines, no hard corners. So I would avoid using your ruler for this one. It's going to be strictly organic, and I'm going to read over the material specifications here, and then, like I said, I'm going to show you a few little things here that you can do to help you get started. Okay, so black pen and white cardstock, 8.5 by 11, and spray mount. So it's black and white only. No image may be made. Non-objective lines only. So whenever I use the word non-objective, I'm referring to images that are entirely abstract, meaning there's no recognizable imagery from the natural world. And you're going to be using fine point design liners or good markers on white cardstock. So I have a broad tipped Sharpie here, and I have two different micron pens. I have a 3 and an 05. So my 3 is going to be a little bit broader, and my 05 is the fine point one that we see right here, this one. So this is my 3, this is my 5. And then my broad tip Sharpie, that's this one here. Okay. All right, so if we look at these two examples, when we're talking about undulation, we're talking about the image's ability to suggest a sense of movement. We're not looking at something kinetic here. We're looking at something that's strictly a two-dimensional image. But you can see through the use of repetitive lines, both of these images appear to suggest the sense of depth and movement. And we're not really using any shading for this project, so you're going to have to rely on your lines, the line variation and the proximity of your lines to create a sense of movement. So I would avoid trying to be super uniform or have things be consistently spaced out. Just sort of let your image evolve organically. So you can decide to include a black space, as I mentioned. You can do that at the beginning or at the end. I have my white cardstock here. I'm just going to go ahead and lay in a black space on the side to get me started. So I'm going to use my broad tip Sharpie here, and I'm just going to very organically lay in a solid black shape. And again, it doesn't have to be a particular type of shape. It can really be anything you want. And I can even allow this shape to dictate where I begin with my lines. So I'll show you what that's going to look like in just a second. Just filling it in here. Okay, so I'll hold this up and show you what it looks like here in just a moment. I'm just making sure to fill everything in so it's nice and consistent. Oh, missed a little bit on the edge there. Okay, all right. So I just put in a small little amorphous black shape in the corner here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my I'm just going to start with my number 3 because I think that'll be a little bit more transitional since it's broader than the 05 to start drawing my lines leading off of that black shape that I just drew. Alright, so I'm just sort of following the contours around that shape. And then I'm going to follow that up with another line here. And the nice thing about this 3 pen is that it does have a flat point, and so I can use the edge and the broad side to vary my line width. And it's going to yield some pretty varied results that are going to make the image a little bit more compelling. And so with each succeeding line, I am kind of allowing the previous line to dictate where the next line is going to move. Okay, give me just a moment and I will hold up what I have so far. And again, I'm kind of rotating the tip of my pen right now to give me varying lengths as I move. I'm not too worried about the final result at this point. I'm just being very organic with this one in the hopes that I will achieve a surface that has movement. And again, you can vary the widths of your lines, so they don't all have to be bunched up right next to each other. It's actually kind of interesting when you do get, pockets of space where things aren't uniformly right next to each other. So I'm being mindful of that, and I'm kind of creating little gaps here and there in the design. And in terms of that black shape, again, that can really be anywhere you want aside from the center of the composition. So I chose the lower left-hand corner, but you can choose a different location if you'd like. This is your project. Okay, so this is what I have so far. So you'll notice that I have little pockets of space that I've included, but I'm trying to maintain a fairly close proximity with the repetitive lines that I'm drawing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to my 05 pen. That one's a little bit finer. And that way I can do some pretty delicate lines if I want. And I'm going to move a little bit more quickly here. I'm not going to do the entire design right in front of you because I don't want to waste your time. This is really just to give you a sense of the process for this one. So these usually, when we meet for critique, vary tremendously from one another. So everyone sort of takes a slightly different approach with this one, but as long as you're following the assignment specifications, you should be just fine. And you can really get into the details here too. If you're using a fine point design liner like this, this 05 that I have here, you can get the lines pretty close in proximity to each other to vary them from maybe the broader tip lines that you were creating previously. And again, I started with the 3. You might have different numbers for your pens, different levels of thickness. It's just going to depend. So you can kind of decide how you want to approach it. Alright, I'm going to hold this up here in just a second. Again, I'm creating a few pockets of space here and there just to kind of mix it up. Okay, but I am being mindful of the directionality of my previous lines, so not going completely off the rails. It's almost starting to look like rings of a tree or something like that, which is always kind of the nature of organic projects like this. Okay. Alright, so if I hold that up, you can see the difference between these lines and these lines. But even now, you're starting to see the suggestion of plane variation. Things feel like they're starting to suggest a kind of topography. And when I was saying don't hitch lines or allow lines to intersect, what I mean by that is you don't want to draw a line, say like this, and then have another line going over it. Okay, so you want to avoid that at all costs. We don't want to have any intersecting lines. You're just sort of following the flow of the lines that you've drawn previously. Okay, starting on one side leading to the other. Alright, that's all I have for you. Please let me know if you have any questions. This project should be pretty straightforward. Again, you want to make sure that this is mounted to your 12.5 by 15 inch mat board. Okay? Alright, I'll see you guys on Monday.